Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the Yuffie DLC, we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII Intergrade, and we're going to be also talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. And the thing that we're going to be talking about is something that all three of these things have got in common, and that is they're all only going to be on PS5. Now that much is obvious given everything that's going on. I mean, they're not going to release a Yuffie DLC that's exclusively PlayStation 5 and then release Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 on the PS4. It's never going to happen. But rather than being concerned about that, and yeah, some people are a bit annoyed, and we'll go into that a bit later on, but what I really want to talk about is why this has been done, but not only why has it been done, what are we going to get out of it? What's the benefit? Don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe for future content. It massively helps, and I'm trying to push the channel up to 200 subscribers, so, help me out. It will be massively appreciated. But let's get right into it. Now, there are a few different answers that all kind of come together to this question. There isn't one specific reason why this game is going to be PS5 only, I don't think. I genuinely feel like it's an amalgamation of multiple reasons. And I'm just going to quickly go over those reasons now. So, I mean, the first and probably the most obvious one is the relationship that Square Enix have with Sony. Final Fantasy VII Remake got pushed to the moon as far as its PlayStation release. It's still exclusive to PlayStation. That PC version or that Xbox version, they haven't reared their heads yet. I don't know if they're going to be honest with you, especially with the big move that Xbox have made for Bethesda. Maybe Sony are looking at making a similar big move with Square Enix. Who knows? There have been rumours floating about that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be so much that Sony would buy Square Enix, but I can definitely see some sort of exclusivity deal being put in place, at least as far as Final Fantasy VII Remake goes. Maybe not 16, we'll see about that, but definitely Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's how it's looking, at least at the minute, because all I've been hearing for ages is, oh, they're going to announce it soon, they're going to announce it soon, they're going to announce it soon, and they've not announced it. We do have an event coming later on in the week, and I'm going to do a video with my predictions regarding that, but again, I don't think we're going to get anything along those lines announced at this event, so yeah, I just can't see it. But this has definitely been something that Square Enix and Sony have probably come together and said, right, how do we guarantee that people come to the PS5? How do we guarantee sales? And I mean, this is the thing, most people that I would think bought Final Fantasy VII Remake will have already owned a PS4. I don't think that there will have been a massive percentage of people that had to go out and buy a PlayStation 4 specifically to play Final Fantasy VII Remake. I just don't believe that. I mean, there will be some, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying no one did. There would definitely be some people that did. But it's going to be a pretty negligible number, so I don't think that Square Enix is going to have too much of a problem on that front. So yeah, I definitely feel like this is Square Enix doing a solid for Sony. Sony will probably do a solid in return for Square Enix. We can see that relationship that's been in place since the PS1, really, with Squaresoft and Enix both developing massive JRPGs for the PS1, and it's just been ongoing since then. So that's the first of the reasons why I feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is also going to be PlayStation 5 only, and why everything is going to be PS5 only. Now, the next point is going to be the obvious technical upgrades. So there are going to be a lot of technical upgrades that come with this game, such as better lighting, better shadows, all that sort of thing. So, Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to want to take advantage of those kind of benefits, and they can't do that if they're on the PlayStation 4. They'd be locking themselves out of those benefits. Another thing that I've seen people saying is, why don't they just develop it for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5? And that, again, that doesn't make sense, because you'd be limiting the quality of the game overall, because, yeah, fair enough, the PlayStation 4 version wouldn't be expected to have, like, ray tracing and all that sort of business, but it'd still have to be the same game, pretty much. So you wouldn't be able to save. I mean, we'll get into this later, but the limitations would be there if it was on PS4, and it'd definitely hold the game back. So I can see that with the technical upgrades, definitely a reason to go to PS5. And then the third reason is going to be the scope of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. It's going to be a lot more demanding than Final Fantasy VII Remake was. Final Fantasy VII Remake happened in an encapsulated area, small corridors and streets at a time. Now we're going out into the big bad open world. And I've said it in another video, it's quite telling that they were talking about Horizon Zero Dawn, and I do think we are going to see pretty big areas between, like, the towns and the other stop-offs that you make on your journey in Final Fantasy VII. Now, these areas, the PS4 might not be able to handle them, at least not to the scope that Square Enix want to do it. The next thing is going to be the combat. And I definitely feel like this is another reason why the Yuffie DLC is going to PS5 only and isn't available on PS4. I think that there's some issue with the combat that kind of holds it back a little bit, because the combat was really good on the PS4, but there were issues. There were things like flying enemies, jumping up to attack flying enemies. There was issues with the camera and things like that. There were some other smaller issues, but the main ones were aerial enemies and camera issues now and again. If we're adding another character into that in the form of Yuffie, and we're going to add Red 13 into the mix when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 as well, they also add these link combos and linked attacks and things like that, so it may just be that the PlayStation 4 cannot handle that much activity going on all at once, not to the detail that Square Enix want it. So there's another thing that's kind of leaning towards why it is a PS5 only game. And then finally, you've just got the faster loading times that are needed due to the size and the detail of some of the areas. I would expect that they are going to double down on the graphical quality, especially now that they've made a massive deal about the Integrate upgrade. Integrate upgrade, yeah. With them making a big deal about how much of an improvement that is graphically. We can't then see Remake Part 2 step back. If anything, Remake Part 2 needs to improve on Intergrade's graphics and the Yuffie DLC's graphics and all the other quality of life things and the facilities. Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 needs to polish all of that. So, I mean, we could think of the Yuffie DLC and the Intergrade upgrade as kind of like a teaser for what we are going to get on PS5 when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. But at the same time, it should also explain why it's only going to PS5. So that's the reasons why. And again, I do get that some people are annoyed about the DLC in Part 2 being PS5 only, but I think that the points that have come previously in what I've just said kind of negate all of those concerns. It will be a minority of people that purely bought the PS4 Final Fantasy VII Remake. There will be people who weren't planning on upgrading to a PS5 yet that they might not be very happy, but the game will still be there when you do eventually upgrade to PS5. You will be able to play it. I know that that's not much of a consolation, and I still haven't got a PS5 yet. I'm going to be doing everything that I can to try and get one before June. I kind of gave up, to be honest, over the last month or two and just decided to I'm going to let things settle down, let stock levels kind of chill out a little bit, hopefully, and then pick one up in the summertime. That has become much more urgent for me now, but if I don't get one, I don't get one in time. The game will still be there. The DLC will still be there. Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 isn't going to be coming out for at least a year. Judging from everything that we've seen now, we're looking at back end of 2022, early 2023 for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. That's what it's looking at. I'd kind of coyly predicted that it would be early 2022, but obviously that's not going to be the case now. We're probably going to get 16 before we get Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. That's genuinely how it's looking. And can you honestly say it makes sense to develop a game to release on PS4 in late 2022, early 2023, when the next gen consoles will have been out for a good year and a bit by that point, year and a half? It just doesn't make sense. And it does seem like this is going to be one of the flagship games that the PS5 is going to run with. Final Fantasy VII Remake 2, it's got massive hype surrounding it. People are interested. So yeah, they're definitely going to use that to push consoles. It makes good business sense. But what about you? What do you think? Are you understanding of the fact that Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 will be coming out on PS5 only? Or are you a bit miffed and a bit annoyed, and were you not really planning on grabbing a PS5 at that point? Or are you still waiting for the PC edition? Where are you on this spectrum? Drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe for future content. But more importantly than anything, have a great day.